It's Spoilerin time, the companion show to the show Cordkillers. Cordkillers is about how to watch things, devices, and services. And this is the show where we watch the stuff and we get to have fun talking about it. I'm Tom Merritt, and joining me is Brian Brushwood.
Hey, man, it's good to be back, Tom. I feel, I guess I'm still remote, but I'm dialed in. I saw some movies, which I can't talk about, but I did watch the TV shows. But most importantly, it's been 2 weeks since I paid any attention to the summer movie draft.
Oh, congratulations, Team John Trekker.
What are you talking about? DTNS is in first place with $750 million. John Trekker is a distant second place with only $560 million.
Incredibles 2 has made $350 million since it came out 10 days ago.
Yeah,
that's a lot of money. It will continue to make some money. And then the first Purge will come out. That'll make them virtually nothing. Mission Impossible Fallout comes out for them on July 27th. They are, at the present moment, $190 million behind Team DTNS, which has essentially stopped accruing new points. So, do you think that Incredibles 2, First Purge, and Mission Impossible Fallout will make less than $190 million by the end of this draft?
Probably not, but meanwhile, Skyscraper Fever and Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom Fever is gonna take over the world? ? And then make us
Team Night Attack with 405 million. So you'd have to pass Team John Trekker, and Jurassic World doing 150 million, pretty darn good. That was way more than I expected.
Not bad, but you're right. It's not looking real good for Team Night Attack. However, I'm
going to try to tell you something, Brian, without violating an NDA. I am under embargo until July 10th on my opinions about Skyscraper, which I saw last week.
So you can't give any opinions, but
I cannot give opinions about the movie Skyscraper until July 10th. But separately and unrelated to that previous statement, I would say, Brian, don't give up all hope.
Right on. That was a good motivational stick in there. There's always a silver lining to any cloud message that you gave me.
That's right.
Completely
that was my
unrelated
silver lining playbook at work.
That's actually exciting for me to think about, the possibility that we should not give up hope. Surprising things will have to happen, granted. First of all, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom has to have a strong second week. It's up against Uncle Drew and Sicario, too. So that's possible. It had a good, solid first week against Incredibles 2. Incredibles 2 would have to have a fall off this next week. That's less likely, like a bigger fall off than normal. And Mission Impossible Fallout would probably have to underperform. But I feel like it's still not impossible. It's pretty likely it's going to be Team John Trekker, but if anybody could catch them, it would be you. Yeah. Well, man, that'll be exciting to see. I feel like didn't Movie League Mike post a article saying that Incredibles 2 had a fairly precipitous drop off, or a bigger than expected drop off on its second week? Yeah. So who knows if Jurassic World. Oh, speaking of Jurassic World, quick side note. Took the kids to the Dave & Buster's, and they had the Jurassic World VR experience. Surprisingly good. Now, granted, it's not much of a video game. You just it's more like a theme park ride.
Unlike the movie. Surprisingly
yes,
good.
It's all vibes. So the head tracking was extraordinary, and you got to see, the quality of the Vive. But I was surprised at how good just being in a 4-seat thing that just bobbed up and down. It really felt like you were driving around in the jungle. I dug it.
Very cool. All right, let's get into spoiling. We're going to spoil 2 episodes of Deadwood this week to catch us back up on track, and the season finale of Westworld. Preacher did air last night and is back, so we'll probably try to get back into watching that. We'll let you know for sure. And Better Call Saul coming in like 40 days.
I am 100% back in on Preacher. That's going to be one that as soon as I get back home, that's also one that, shocker, if you've ever seen Preacher, can't watch in mixed company in front of the kids.
And this is the problem with Preacher for me. It comes out on Sunday night at 10 p.m. Pacific. And I don't have an East Coast feed where I'm like, oh, but that's actually, 6 p.m. So that's fine.
And then Monday you hit the ground running hard.
It's just awful when they do that. But, we do our best. That's all.
Hey, let's all write a letter to Preacher. That way we could waste both of our times.
Yes, it's a good idea. All right, let's talk about Westworld. You want to go first or shall I?
Yeah, man. So here's a clever trick that good narrative fiction of all varieties pulls. And I know The Dark Tower did it very, very well. The book, not the movie. And some people disagree with this, but I think on balance, Lost did it very, very well. When you do it right, what you do is you set up a question, and it's a really engaging question that gets you to follow along. And at some point, you get the answer to that question, but it's because an even more interesting question gets asked. We're going to talk about the roller coaster ride of those last 2 episodes of Westworld and that finale. But in general, as a diagnosis of Westworld in the whole, in all of it, I feel like every question that has been the new question is less interesting than the question that became of it. I feel like on balance, it's entirely too much talking and not enough showing, and too much mystery for mystery's sake. The jumping around of timelines to confuse is very tedious for me right now. There is only the single character of all of the second season that is the all-star best character is that Lakota chief. And the reason he's so good is because his story is so simple and grounded and resonated with me on a deeply emotional level. He's quite literally the only character I care about in the entire show at this point. Everything else about Westworld is rubber ducks. It's like, I don't care if a rubber duck has its head stomped on. I don't care if it gets lost because there's a billion more rubber ducks. I don't care if it's all rubber ducks.
Yeah, I'm not too far off from you. I still enjoyed it. But I sort of enjoyed it in spite of itself because I decided to not care. I don't have time to plow through subreddits and go to expanded reality websites and parse every single thing. If I did, I'm sure I would enjoy this and be less confused. I'm sure I wouldn't have to have read 3 recaps this morning to make sure I understood what I saw last night. But at the same time, it's like, okay, I'm getting an Android joyride, and I understand enough of it that it's fine. And there's nothing wrong with a TV show being deep. But like you said, at some point, there's a difference between being deep and being confusing. And Westworld strays into confusing quite often. I care.
And I will point out that, and I think I speak for both of us, like we both admit that if we gave it more attention and if we cared more, that you put the blame on us for not caring enough. But
absolutely.
But the difference is if we're confused. If we need anyone besides the show to explain it to us, then that tells me there's something with the show and not us. And, it's just tedious. It's more tedious than I would like.
And we're not telling you what to think. We're saying what we think. This is how we have experienced it, right? I care about different character. Well, not even different. I actually care about the Ghost Nation chief as well. I care about a few more characters than you, but not many. I felt like I cared enough about Maeve to give a damn when she didn't make it at the end. Why she didn't make it at the end was stupid. I don't understand why the dead Wi-Fi mesh network overpowered Maeve, and also why didn't she stop him earlier if she could stop him at all. But I was sad to see her go. I also cared about Bernard for some reason, and I'm not even sure why. But I feel like I got to know him enough. I spent enough time understanding him. I did not care about Dolores at all. Like, they basically did the opposite with Dolores. I cared about her a lot in season 1. And this season, they just like, stop caring about her. Just, pushing me away from her. So that's it, though. Like, those are the characters I had any feelings about. Everybody else was disposable. Even when the writer guy finally gets up and decides to sacrifice himself, I knew I should care. I should be feeling something, and I wasn't. And then I also was feeling like, but why does he have to die? Couldn't he delay them without just standing there and letting them shoot him? Like, wouldn't that delay them more if he didn't die? Like,
well, and also, does he even know what he's dying for? Does he have any idea what the greater cause is?
I was not convinced that he would suddenly have. I was convinced that he was changing his mind about androids and what they meant. I wasn't convinced that he changed that much, I guess.
Right. He's like, even though they've all died hundreds of thousands of times before and we could restart them and redo them at any time, I want to literally sacrifice myself for this moment. Here's the other thing is even the characters that I do like, that I do feel an emotional connection to, I don't believe any of them are dead. I don't believe that's the last we'll see of them, whether they're human or whether they're androids, or now third layer, a computer-generated simulation that's perpetually gone. San Junipero. It's like, what does it matter? I'm done. I will never shed a tear for a single character in that show because I don't believe any of them are gone. I don't believe Maeve is gone. I don't believe. Dolores is certainly not gone. But
Elsie. Elsie is the one who's like Maeve. They show her and you're like, oh, I guess they could revive her. There's her body. She's, she didn't make it into the simulation, so they could bring her back. Elsie is the one that got shot and died, and as far as we know, was human. But hey, everybody's backed up in the forge. So
both all of the androids and all of the humans. Literally, right? Every character has multiple backups, and they can print bodies at will. And it's like the one thing I want to see is real stakes. And by insisting the whole show so far has taken place outside of a couple of flashbacks. The whole show has taken place in the park, the one place where we know nothing counts, nothing's real. There are no stakes. You get infinite resets. And at first that was just for the park itself. Then it seemed like the stakes were real. But now with backups of everything, it's not true for that. And then on top of that, the simulation over it, you have effectively trained me, Westworld. Don't worry. I will care exactly for your characters as much as I care about everybody I run over while I play Grand Theft Auto 5.
Yeah, and we've differed about this even from season 1. The fact that somebody can die and come back isn't going to kill my ability to care about them, right? There are reasons I care about Maeve that have nothing to do with the fact that she is essentially unkillable in a way. But if you just kind of I don't want sloppiness is too harsh probably, but there's a way that it's being treated that makes it feel like it doesn't matter. Not just that, like, I'm fine with like, ooh, there's unlimited resets, but there's pain to that. Like they did a lot of good work about that. I like that they did a lot of work to say, and you know what? Humans have a program too, and maybe their program is a little more restrictive. I like that. But in the end, it's sort of all washed away by this idea that like, we've got all this data that can bring people back, and we almost deleted it and made it so that like that data isn't a backup anymore. But then we undid that, and I'm actually confused. Where all the hosts that did enter the simulation, where they went. Also, what happened to their bodies? Still are there? Did it erase them from that, or is there still a copy of them? Could there be two of them? There's just so many questions out there that make you go, well, I don't know, maybe everything can happen anyway.
And by the
way, what I
should
be feeling at the end of this, just let me say this one more thing. What I should be feeling at the end of this is, that everything is gone except fake Charlotte, Dolores, Bernard, and the other two balls that she carried out. Those are the only androids surviving. And like you say, it doesn't feel like that. It feels like, oh, but they could bring Teddy in if they really wanted to.
So it does. There are two ways to fix this. One is structural, right? I think part of what we're bristling at is they built an environment that inherently causes us not to care. And you could fix it by making it clearer that the stakes are high and there's no, like, for example, they do a really great job in Infinity War. There's this one moment where a character is killed and almost looking directly into the camera, Thanos says, "No resurrection." So you're like,
I think you can have stakes without death. I think Maeve is a great example of that, where it's like, yeah, I keep getting brought back, and that's worse. I need to stop this. And that's kind of what they're trying to make Dolores do, but I'm not convinced.
Well, and that's the other thing is that the other way to solve the problem is with poetry. Give me a 90-minute soliloquy about the nature of, yes, this body, this flesh gets recycled over and over and over again. But this moment, this instant, my experience is different this time, this however many days it's been. And when it's gone forever, and it's erased and becomes ether. And, make something that gives me a hook to think, oh, yeah, this one is a unique snowflake. I do want it to survive or whatever, for whatever reason. It's like, if I die, the memory of this dies with me. And so, I
think they got very close and actually achieved a couple of times the idea of like, yeah, I can't die. And that's awful because I don't have choice. I don't have agency.
Right.
I don't have the ability to escape this hell that I keep reliving. Like, I like that they brought that up and played with it. I just haven't seen them deliver on where that's going. With Dolores, it's like, I want to go out and kill all the humans. And Bernard's like, you shouldn't kill all the humans, but let's team up together. Like, I know there's some poetry there somewhere, but it's not working for me.
So, couple of house cleaning things. Do you remember back when we saw the premiere of season 2, and there was that you and I did not notice the one body floating in the water was supposed to be Teddy, and we saw all the blogs saying that's Teddy floating in the water. So all those blogs, they were wrong, right? Because Teddy definitely blew his brains out on the other side of the park, nowhere near where that would be.
Pretty sure that's right.
What I have seen is that when Teddy killed himself, he was probably not very far from the forge.
He was close enough. Also,
they were in a pretty dilapidated house, and that was a large area that got flooded.
Yeah, okay. And
why does flooding the forge flood everything in the valley behind it, but somehow not actually end up destroying the data like they thought it would happen when she started to flood the forge?
Well, was the data fine in the forge? I don't know, because I know they said they
came and they picked up the ball and they put it in and said decrypting, and they're like, sure. It's all here, it's ready to transfer. Wait a minute, that's not the same data. That's the host. Oh crap!
As we all know, the way deleting files works is files have a progress bar of their level of deletion, and if you stop it before it hits 90%. Then it didn't complete the deletion and everything's there.
Well, that's super weird, because they definitely say on the UI corruption likely, even if you stop it. So it's
I actually am okay with that.
That's weird,
because when you delete files, you're deleting the file allocation table, not the files, until you finish and start doing passes. So they could be sophisticated enough for that to work.
Sure. I'm with that. So, I don't know. We got all of our questions answered, except for the big one, which is, why should we care? Man, I would love to see Panic on the Street. Here's the reason I'm maybe my most mistrustful of this franchise yet, because with everything they've completed and the fact that we caught a glimpse of who knows how many thousands of years it's taken for them to keep rebooting the Man in Black to go for that post-credit scene to have the same miserable experience that Delos did. That you're like, oh wow, so I guess at some point the robots win or whatever. Like, wow, what a fascinating epic battle. I would love to see this extended futuristic world and how they deal with this contagion threat. And I would love to see Dolores blending in with the crowd under this assumed name and identity, slowly building a robot army to do an uprising across the entire world. And then it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like, I will never, ever see that. There is zero chance any of that shows up in season 3, because the show is called Westworld, and they've spent money on Westworld locations and Westworld sets and Westworld actors. And I can just get ready to just hang around in Westworld, hearing about what's going on in the rest of the world.
I don't know that the name of the show is so definitive. No. But I think if they want to if they want to have Westworld leak out in the world, Westworld's just the name of the company that this is all tied to. I think that's fine.
And
sure. I know they will still make use of their Westworld sets, etc., because we'll have flash forwards and sideways and whatever. So I think you might still get your wish, Brian.
I doubt it.
I think the writers have been out there talking and saying that season 3 will mostly not take place in the park. That is the scuttle that I've heard. Is that
I'll believe it when I see it.
All right, let's talk about the post-credit scene, because you alluded to it just now. That's the one where the Man in Black finally gets up and gets into the elevator, and we've seen him get up and head toward the elevator and get in the elevator prior. But when he gets in the elevator, there's no Bernard. When Bernard gets in the elevator, there's no Man in Black. When he finally goes down the elevator, he gets out of the elevator and sees Emily, his daughter. but he knows it's not his daughter because he just shot his daughter, unless that wasn't his daughter. And she takes him into the room where they had been doing the simulation, but tells him this is not a simulation, but does say that he has been going through this multiple times, implying that instead of a simulation, they have been running him in an android body through the park over and over and over again. This confused the crap out of me until I read on Hollywood Reporter an interview with co-showrunner Lisa Joy, who said that scene takes place in the far future. It's a point in the timeline that they're driving toward in the story, but it is not the same time as what happened with Bernard and Dolores and Charlotte Hale.
Oh, that was immediately apparent to me. The moment he walks out and you're like, I'm in the park, and she's like, well, what's left of it? And you see dust and decay. And I was like, oh, this is some 1,000 years in the future. The robots, humanity is a long distant memory. And maybe this is a side project
smarter
to try to
than
bring
me,
back.
because I was confused by that until Lisa Joy confirmed it. And several of the other recaps have been a little bit confused by that as well.
Interesting. No. In fact, this was one of the most interesting parts to me, is I thought, like, what if long after the robots won, some faction of robots said, we should really try to bring humanity back, not let them run everything, but there probably was some value, like basically, the Jurassic Park of humans, where somebody is just like, some android said, you were so obsessed of whether or not you didn't pause to ask if you should bring humans back.
And there is a lot of cool elements to that, where Dolores says, you're not that complicated. I read your books. We're more complicated. Where Dolores was testing the fidelity of Arnold, the android, and realized, if we make him exactly like Arnold, he will fail. He will end up at the same point and kill himself every time. Let's make him different enough that he'll survive and call him Bernard. So it is interesting to wonder, well, what do they think they can change about the Man in Black? Why are they trying this if they know that, they always end up at the same place anyway?
Well, but they've also established that they have cause to be cruel. The androids do. They have cause to be cruel, and they seem, at least in some instances, to take great pleasure in being cruel.
So you think it's not a research effort; it's a punishment effort?
I mean, why not have both, right? Why not see if you could recreate humanity and also torture the?
Sure. I'm just wondering what they think is different. Like, if they don't think they can do it, then it's just torture. But if they do think they can change it, I'm wondering what it is they discovered that makes them think they could change it. I think that's just intriguing to me. I'm not saying I know what the answer is.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll find out somewhere around season 7.
Yeah, that's where we're driving towards eventually, according to Lisa Joy. So
it's just real quick. A+ for all of the location shoots. The aesthetics are gorgeous. It's beautifully shot, or whatever. The story's good. Get a B-, C+ on it.
For all my kvetching, I enjoyed it, and I'm definitely gonna watch it again next season.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's just so damn tedious for tediousness' sake, and it's what it feels like. You ever have one of those folks who really wants to tell you what they did this morning, but they walk up, they're like, oh, I had quite a morning, and then awkward pause, look at you, and then you go like, ugh. What happened this morning? Like, oh, well, I was driving down that's Westworld. It's just like, would you just tell me? Just tell me. Don't do that thing where you say a half sentence and look at me expectantly and expect me to do a thing on that.
You'll never believe what I ate this morning.
You know what? I don't care. Because if it was important, you would just tell me.
It was an oatmeal muesli slice. All right.
Season 2 better than season 1, though?
Yes.
Like, by a lot?
The ending kind of brought it back down to close for me, but better. I would say better for me. Brian?
I don't know.
Really? I thought you would have loved season 2 way more, because it was very action heavy, and it was answered a lot of the questions of what the maze is and what the valley is and what the door is, and
sure, but everything that doesn't have stakes is noise. I liked the very beginning of season 1 because it felt like there were real stakes, got very, very mushy, and then finally at the end, it felt like there were stakes again. So there's a U-shaped curve on season 1. Season 2 started off very, very strong, but then they go to work. It ended with a whimper because they slowly removed any reasons for me to be afraid for any character or any outcome. So by the time it ended up happening, I was like, I don't know, you'll just, print out a whole other planet Earth for all I know, whatever.
You're the carnivore of viewers, Brian.
What's that?
You're the carnivore of viewers. Steaks, very important.
Yes, correct. So I am conflicted, but I would almost say I don't know. I guess season 2 is prettier. You got to see more sci-fi crap.
Yeah, and it had some really stellar episodes too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You know what? I'll give it to season 2 just for that Ghost Nation episode.
All right, let's talk about Deadwood. We're going to talk about season 2 finale, Boy the Earth Talks To, where George Hurst arrives in camp, and we have the end of the Chinese bosses, and of course, season 3, episode 1, Tell Your God to Ready for Blood, with the impending speeches for the election, some maneuvering around George Hurst, and a proposed real estate deal to star at the behest of Swearingen. Now, before we get into just generally what we think of the events, Brian, these really blend together as one episode into another. It did not feel, it surprised me when I went back to tell you what to watch, when you're like, wait, which episodes are we on? That we were at the season finale of season 2 and the premiere of season 1 or season 3.
Yeah. And that's an interesting take because, if you think of it as one episode, it almost makes sense because, I don't want to overcomplicate it. Let me just say that the ending of season 2 of Deadwood would have been a fine way to end the entire series.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been about as good as I possibly could have hoped for. It would have been, which is the weird thing because I found it, because they canceled it after season 2. After it was out, and then said, but we're going to make a third season anyway, or whatever it was they decided to do that we're about to experience. It seemed like you could have just ended. It was everything had its place.
A full third season. It's 12 episodes.
Okay. But still, it was so poetic. That end scene of a marriage of compromise to protect the dignity of Alma, the separated lovers with Raylan and Alma. I'm going to call him Raylan. You have that end scene. You've got you even have Doc and what's her name dancing at the place, and you've got looking down. Yeah, you've got no, not Calamity Jane. Doc. It was Doc and Jewel dancing, which was super sweet. You have the fact that Mr. W, overwrought with guilt, kills himself and wraps that up nicely. There were no loose ends at the end of season 2, I thought.
Well, the loose end is George Hurst and what is his effect going to be, but it's not something you couldn't say, and that is the next chapter, right? Like we can end it there. Correct. Because now the government, Yankton's coming in and Hearst is coming in and everything's going to change for our brave heroes. But we see them one last time in their pioneer spirit before everything starts to move towards normality in the world. Yeah, I could totally see that. What's funny is I didn't realize it was the season ender when I watched it. And then I went and watched the next one, and it really just felt like, oh, okay, so we had the wedding, the wrap up of the Chinese stuff, great, and now we're having the elections, I guess. Okay, cool. And it just really flowed together for me.
I agree, and that's what I was about to side tangent into, is if you put them all together as one episode, it almost makes sense, because in that 3-act structure, usually it's that first act, you have everything wrapped up, it's a complete story in and of itself, and then you introduce the second act where the danger is made real to you. And so in that regard, that's kind of what we got. One quick side note, loved, man, that actor playing Wu, I believed him. That moment when he grabbed his ponytail and cut it off and held it up to Swearingen and shouted America, that is somebody who deeply emotionally feels this appreciation and this I want to say a life debt to Swearingen in that moment. And I don't know, I found it charming and I believed it.
And it was kind of said that they're like, oh, Woo's out of town right now for the entire episode 1 of season 3. Because I would have liked to see more of him. But I didn't really think about that till you mentioned that. Yeah, it was a powerful scene. Also, a little bit, not out of place, but an overreaction is Bullock beating the crap out of Farnham. Not that we all didn't enjoy it, because Farnham is odious, and we all wanted to beat the crap out of him. So maybe that's enough. I didn't think what Farnham said was worthy of sparking that reaction. I understand that it's a reaction to the fact that Hearst knows more than he was supposed to. But I don't know. It just struck me as being a little bit out of place. And then the reaction to him beating the crap out of Farnham is like, oh, yeah, okay. Well, I guess you beat the crap out of Farnham. It might have been over the top, but whatever. Like everybody just sort of shakes it off. They take him to Swearingen's to recuperate, and that's the end of that.
We have seen a deep, simmering private rage or frustration in his name's not real. What's his name again?
Bullock.
We've seen Bullock like very sensitive about the Alma issue, and he's been keeping it together, looking from afar, and including at the end of the previous episode when it's like the music stops when the two of them look at each other, and he walks off, and then the music starts up again. I think that was a boiling point moment where it's like, on top of all this, I'm dealing with all this, and then you talked. This is the one thing, and then took him out, not realizing he had been played. I think his emotions had been running high for quite a while at that point, and that was just a boiling point moment. However, and I guess it happened, I don't know if it was previous episode or this most recent one we watched, where Hearst offers $100,000 to EB. Like, I hadn't really considered EB as full on mad, as he puts it. I always thought he was eccentric because he liked to talk to himself, but when he talks like when he faces his fear of like, what am I without my hotel, and loses his mind, he's like, I'm mad. I'm an insane person. This is my hospital. I can't do it.
Oh.
And he's like, well, what if I give you all the money and keep you on? He's like, we have a deal, sir. And then
he was just putting it on. He wasn't really mad.
I don't know. We see him in private without an audience talking to himself, running in circles over and over and over again. I think.
Yeah. I mean, people talk to themselves though. I did not take it that way at all. I took it to mean he was using that as a negotiating tactic.
I suspect that it's something that has been in front of us the entire time, and obviously we'll probably never know where it gets developed, but I believed him because it was one of those moments I'm like,
oh gosh, really? No, I was like, that is the worst pretending to be crazy display I've ever seen. Like, how does Hearst even fall for that? Oh, he doesn't. He just wants him to shut up. That's really how I interpret it. It's 100% different than you. That's interesting.
Okay. I mean, we know that EB is 100% power mad and hungry for money, and it's all he wants. And being given the chance to sell the here's the difference is if it was a Gambit, you would at least find out what the initial offer was before you said no flat out. But he was offered a chance to sell the place, and he says, no, I'm mad and I can't handle it. This is my place. And then he gets an offer. And I don't think EB is sophisticated for that to be an on-purpose Gambit. I think he is genuinely fearful because he refused to even hear the offer until it was confirmed that he would be able to stay in the hotel. And that would indicate to me that there was at least some part of that was 100% sincere.
I don't see it that way, but that's, I mean, your logic, your internal logic is consistent. So I just come from a different premise, and I'm like, yeah, but that could also be, him just playing his negotiating and wanting to stay on, because when he's in the hotel, he gets to keep his finger on the pulse of things and still under, get information, which is important. So, what I will absolutely agree with you is he is a little bit nuts, and that's true. And I think knowing that he's a little bit nuts, he uses that sometimes.
Yeah. Agreed. Man, really, really enjoying it. I couldn't help but smile with the obligatory, well, it's the beginning of the third season, so enjoy your one wide computer generated shot of the entire camp that you'll get.
Oh, see, I didn't notice that at all. Again, because I didn't even know it was the beginning of season 3. I'm just like, play the next episode.
Yeah, no, that I think at the beginning of each of the episodes, there's been like one shot that starts at the sky and pans down on the entire street, and that's the only time you see the entire street.
Interesting. I do like seeing the guy from House of Cards play the same character from House of Cards, but in the 1800s as Hearst. He's really good at that character.
Oh my God, I didn't know.
I'm just a kindly man with a lot of money, and I'm going to crush you if you get in my way, but I'll be a pal about it.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Did very much enjoy Swearengen's casual handling of everything with Hearst, and I'm still sussing out the different moves, because that's one of the things I dig about Deadwood is that it lets you it lets you figure out what stuff means, and when you're paying attention to the circular language and the overly cautious, polite, circuitous way that they express stuff, eventually you're like, oh, he is being polite and not saying this outright so that this can happen, and so on.
Yeah.
That conversation made me happy.
No, agreed. Good episodes, and I always feel good when I kick a Deadwood in and start watching it. Like I never resist. I never think, oh, I guess I have to watch it. It's always fun.
Oh, why is Cy still around? We're going to see him hang on and possibly find God or something. And it's like he was pointless all of season 2.
I don't know why he's. I mean, you need the gem. And right now he's serving the purpose of being Joni's safe house. Like, well, maybe I shouldn't stay struck out on my own. Maybe I can just go back to what I'm comfortable with. Cause these girls need me. Like it's a good temptation for Joni, but he on his own is just useless.
Should have just killed him. Should have had Joni take over the Bella Union. And then in our minds,
maybe that's what's going to happen. Maybe Joni will kill him and take over the Bella Union.
Well, in which case that would be really interesting, because Joni is a good guy, and it would be interesting to see her start to act more like a bad guy when she has to do the tough things. Yeah. That would be fun, but hopefully we'll get there.
Well, thanks everybody for watching or listening along with us. If you like this Spoiler in Time and you want to get it early or just want to keep it coming, be sure to support us on Patreon at patreon.com/Cordkillers. We'll see you next time.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.